Don't be afraid. It's just me. Trick or treat! Hey there! Welcome back to the toy room. It's great to see you again. You know, this old mask brings back lots of great Halloween memories. Before Halloween, we used to like to go over to Ben Franklin's or Snyder's and check out all the decorations and the Halloween costumes, the wigs and the makeup and the props. And there were wax lips and wax fangs. And of course my favorite was the Halloween wax whistles, orange whistles that were sort of like a harmonica, and you could really play them, and you would break off one note at a time and chew on the flavored wax, and then you'd break off another piece, and then eventually you had no whistle left. We didn't really have Halloween decorations around when I was growing up, but I remember when I was a young boy, I was at a Ben Franklin's with my mom, and I talked her into buying a fairly large scarecrow decoration. And she used to tape that up in the front picture window with its arms and legs akimbo, facing out towards the street, and it was pretty cool when I came home from school and saw it in the window. One of my earliest Halloween memories was when I was going to make my own Halloween costume. I took a plastic cereal bowl, tipped it upside down, and I had a couple pencils that I covered with aluminum foil, and I was going to somehow attach that to the cereal bowl and then attach that to the top of my head, and I was going to wear a green windbreaker and I was going to be a Martian. Well, the mechanics of that didn't work out very well, so close to Halloween I had no Halloween costume. So at the last minute, my mom pulled a yellow raincoat out of the closet and she said, "You're going to be a fireman." For my earliest Halloween, my friend Steve Gaxtetter's dad must have taken us out trick-or-treating, and I don't remember either of my parents ever bringing me out on Halloween. And it was mostly just our little gang of kids, Steve and Greg Gaxtetter, my younger brother Tom, and our friend Tim. And we used to like to get out as early as we could. We'd have a quick dinner around the kitchen table waiting for it to get dark. And as Steve likes to point out, Susie and Lori Lynn were always the first ones on the block to go out trick-or-treating, and it was still light out. And we used to like to see the other costumes that kids had. A lot of them had store-bought costumes like Huckleberry Hound or a princess or an astronaut. And we were going from house to house as fast as we could, nearly running through the darkness and through the leaves on the ground, up the walkways to the houses to yell trick or treat and get that candy. And it was always such an amazing holiday to me as a kid. It was amazing that you could go up to strangers' houses and get candy. And all you had to do is yell out the secret password, trick or treat. We all remember the lady on 14th that had a bowl of popcorn and just tossed loose popcorn into our bags, and we weren't too happy about that. We also didn't really like to get apples, the healthy treat, you know, and I remember throwing the apples on the roof one time. We also would get cookies and those little boxes of sun-made raisins, which also weren't that great. And I remember we went into an apartment building one time. We thought that would be great because there's all these doors next to each other. And the payoff on that was really pretty poor because nobody really answered their door that I remembered in the apartment building. And another important aspect of Halloween was the bags. And my earliest Halloween bag was a paper bag. And I don't even remember this, but it has my name on it. And it has a nice graphic on it. I see at the bottom of this that it costs 10 cents. And you know how the toy room just loves artifacts like this that have withstood the ravages of time. So this is a great little keepsake. And I remember one year Tom and I had plastic bags from Holiday or something that had a drawstring on it and graphics on it. And of course the perennial favorite was always the pillowcase, because it was strong and it held a lot of candy, so the pillowcase was the best. On Halloween, we stayed out as late as we could, pretty much until the last light in town had turned off. And then Tom and I would bring our candy home, and my mom would bring it up to her bedroom and weigh it on a bathroom scale there to see how many pounds of candy that we got. And she also would give us a cake pan, and we would sort our candy into the cake pan, all the similar type candies, the Nestle's Crunch and the Butterfingers and all this good candy, all the similar types together. And of course we had way too many old Henry bars. I didn't really care for those too much, or Baby Bruce, not my favorite. And those black and orange peanut butter Halloween candies, you know, not so great. And I remember a few days after Halloween, one time we were playing Monopoly out in the garage on a card table, and our friends were over, and we had all our Halloween candy out there, and we came across some we didn't like. We just throw it up into the rafters. What are you going to be for Halloween this year? I think I'm going to be a bum. That seemed to be a fairly standard kid response for what you were going to be for Halloween that year. And I can't say that I remember many of my costumes or my friends' costumes, aside from that aborted Martian costume. And my friend Tim remembers that he had a long blonde wig and he was a little girl one year. And some old guy commented, "What a pretty little girl you are." I do remember, though, the Halloween of 1968 when Tom and I, for the only time ever, had store-bought costumes. Our mom must have brought us to a Ben Franklin's, and we got to pick out what costumes we wanted. And for whatever reason, I wanted to be a hippie, and my younger brother Tom was G.I. Joe. And it's sort of interesting because it's kind of reflective of our characters. Tom was in the Marines, and he's an accountant now, and I was sort of artistic, and I'm kind of a bum. And of course, you know, those store-bought costumes, everybody remembers about the masks, that they were so hot and you couldn't breathe and you couldn't see very well, but I felt pretty committed to keep the mask on all night. And those flimsy smocks that they had, they were pretty cheap costumes. I remember by the end of the evening, mine was pretty worn out at the ankles already. And of course, that costume, the smock portion of it, is long gone, but I still have the Halloween mask.
To get a little better detail of the hippie on the front of the costume, I found an image online, and it's kind of odd that you have to put a picture of the hippie on front of the costume to know what one looks like. And this one looks kind of clean cut, has an electric guitar and a knapsack and some writing on his pants. And of course, he must have been going to San Francisco where all the hippies were.
The Halloween mask from the costume reads a little bit more like a beatnik to me than a hippie, but I suppose the flowers and the hair and the wild glasses and the beard. You know, since you're already in the toy room, I'm going to show you some of the Halloween items that I've collected over the years.
Years ago, my mom gave me some of these delightful candy containers from the 1950s, and I picked up a few on my own. I know I got that witch at a show at one point. This is one of those very old papier-mâché pumpkins that I got at a new and used place up north, and it's notable in that it still has its paper insert for the eyes and the mouth. I also got this from my mom, and it's a tin Halloween noisemaker with a nice graphic of a cat and a pumpkin, and you would spin that around and make a lot of noise. This is a plastic blow mold pumpkin man that lights up from the 50s or 60s.
Here's another design of one of those plastic light up Halloween decorations, and a person really can never have too many of these. You don't generally see too many vintage Halloween costumes around, but I do have a couple in here. I have a Planet of the Apes costume, and you can see at the end of the box that this is Ape Leader Caesar, and it tells what size of a child that it fits. Inside the box, here's the mask, and here's the costume itself, and I'm going to lay this out so we can take a look at it. It's probably a little after my time. It's copyrighted 1973, and it looks like it's been used. The one other costume that I have is a tiger, and you can see from the end of the box that it would fit
a child that's from 8 to 10 years old. Here's a closer look at the mask that came with this costume, and the costume itself is made out of cloth, must be older, so it's a pretty nice costume. One other interesting thing about the box, it has a couple different designs on the side of the box, and there's an old Target price sticker on there, and it cost $2.83 at the time. One of the costume designs on the other side of the box appears to be a hippie, but it has a variation, a different type of a face mask. This is a nice paper Halloween decoration from the 1950s, still in the original packaging, and the corn stalks could be folded out with the honeycomb tissue paper to be somewhat three-dimensional. Here's another nice paper Halloween decoration from the 1960s. It's of a witch and nice graphics holding a cat, and it's in its original packaging. I also have some interesting paper masks from an old 5 and dime that a couple gals at a toy show, they were selling new old stock. Their father owned a store at one time, so those are kind of neat. You've met the campus cuties before, and around Halloween a couple candy toppers from the 90s like to come out and chat with the girls. And here's a few of these great Beisel Halloween decorations, and they started making Halloween decorations in the 1920s, and they reused the images through the decades, and it can be kind of hard to date these, but some of the older ones, they were marked H.E. Lures, who became president of the company in the 40s, and it's a higher quality, it's nicely embossed, and you can see here, this one's a newer one, it's marked Beisel, and it's a flimsier paper, and it has fluorescent coloring, so they're really neat decorations, though. I also have a few little Halloween treat bags, and they're kind of charming.
I don't know if this falls under the category of a trick or a treat, but from time to time you've heard me mention my brother Dave on the Toy Room episodes, and so I would like to show you this old family slide. It's a picture of my older brothers Bob and Dave ready to go out for Halloween, and it looks like my brother Bob is a dapper bum and my brother Dave is a gypsy girl. Well, I guess that just about wraps up this episode of the Toy Room. And so until next time, Happy Halloween!